Okay, guess we're live. So we're going to start a new webinar on sharing experiences between coaches and head coaches, just to get all the confusion out of the way, to share experiences, what you have done this week, for example, or what you have done in the previous weeks, which you would like to have more information on or more feedback on. So if you're in the YouTube page right now, just listening to us, you can ask your questions there. I will just check frequently if there's any questions there so that you can get feedback on them. Otherwise, we're currently with two people, one head coach, one coach in the hangout. So if you want to join us, you're more than welcome to join us as well, so that you can have an active discussion with us on the problems or the feedback that you would like to receive. Okay, so we have Sam and we have Karina here. So if either of those have any questions at the moment or would like to share something or something is not clear, and we only have a few weeks to go before the students actually stop with the competition because they have to deliver their final report. So if you have any questions regarding the webinars that you have to give, the training lectures, that should be done before that happens. You can ask those questions, and otherwise, if you have questions about the reflection paper that has to be due in December before everything is done, then you can ask questions about that as well. So I will leave the word to Karina and Sam, and then we will start from there.
Hi, Karina.
Hello, Sam.
um, quick question, Tim. So webinar is required, video lecture is required, and text lecture is all required, yes?
Yes, they're all required, but there is a
Okay.
slight change in, like your head coach mentioned that there was a change, right?
He told us that the webinar was optional.
Okay, so that's not entirely true. Okay, so I'm gonna explain it again. Okay, in the last
Sorry, I know you've
webinar,
explained this like 12 times.
yeah. In the last webinar as well, in the recording, I said that the webinar is kind of the one thing that you're gonna do via online services, or you're gonna do that via. Wait a second, I will just quickly mute Hendrik so that we don't have background noise. Although I like the sound because probably he's cooking something, so I'm kind of hungry. So just to mention about the webinar and the training lectures, etc., etc. So basically, what you have to imagine is the webinar is the final thing that you're going to do. So you have the reflection paper and you have the webinar. So the webinar is solely for the purpose of educating the students. So if you want to, for example, we have Joshua. He sent me a request today, actually, in the morning, saying, "Okay, I talked to my head coach, Karina, and she has listened to my proposal for the webinar, and I would like to do it in the next week, so Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, and I would like to present it so that they still can do something with my webinar for their report, because they will finalize their report next week, not this week, but next week. Just before December. So basically, his report will be about what do they need in their final report, what is required, APA style, what can they do, what can they improve. So this is something that they can use. So what I meant with in the previous webinar, what I meant with the webinar is not entirely required, because basically you have the training lecture, you have the written module that you have to write. So basically you write something, you perform it in a lecture, and you have a webinar. However, as I said or mentioned in the last webinar, if you have a training model basically about APA style, or you have something about, I don't know, how to do research, for example, if that is what you're doing, basically you can also say, okay, I will do it also about this specific topic, but I will narrow it down a little bit in the training lecture. And then the webinar that you're going to give to the students, you can basically give the same topic. So what I said is in the last webinar that the training model, which will be graded, will be evaluated by us and the professors. and the training lecture, basically a PowerPoint presentation, which you're going to use if you would present it in front of in front of us, the teachers, or you would present it in front of the students. Basically, those two items will be evaluated. The webinar, however, if you're going to do it about the same topic, you can simply use the PowerPoint that you had for the training lecture if that is the same topic. So that's what I mentioned. The webinar is definitely required, but you can basically manage it all together so that you have one singular topic or one concept, and you just narrow it down, for example, how to do research, and then basically having a webinar about APA stuff. So basically, this is the kind of process that we're looking at. So I'm not sure how your head coach explained it, or what was required by him and what was not. But for what is required for us to be evaluated and to get or receive the certificate is basically this. Like, you have all those weekly comments, you have all those weekly deliveries, we grade that. So once we have the platform active, and I set 1 to 2 days to the head coaches, which would mean that it would be ready on Monday. So on Monday, you will all receive an email, and basically what we'll be saying there is basically when you enter your account, you see all your grades. So basically, for the weekly comments, for the weekly deliverables, you will see how well you performed overall with your team, and you will receive individual feedback next to that, so that you know what could be improved, what could have been done better, so that you cannot really change it in kind of the process that we had in the previous weeks. So it was not, okay, I delivered these deliveries, but I didn't get feedback. We know that you didn't get feedback for that per week. However, we had the student surveys, we had everything. Basically, the surveys, the weekly deliverables get sent to the students, right? So that they can use that feedback to better their project, their paper. So basically, we had sent surveys to them so that they can evaluate your work, basically, or your work with the team, to provide, okay, feedback. Okay, I found this information really helpful, or I didn't find it helpful at all. So basically, those evaluations count to your grade, count to your team's grade. So that's one section. Then what I require from the webinars, that's the topic that we're currently talking about, we require a training model, basically explaining what the topic is, what the concept is, why it's so important, why we want you to do it. Basically, a whole concept of like a singular paper. It doesn't have to be long, but something that you would use basically to teach a subject in class. So, for example, if I would do APA style, I would have a training model saying concept APA style, and I would then teach you in the training model, okay, the top 5 things what you have to know, maybe an exercise that you have to do so that you can get practice with it, how to manage APA style, and then the resources where to find it. That would be a simple training module that you can use for, I don't know, for the university, or even when you do kindergarten, you can make a really nice example by just having a couple of points, one assignment so that they get engaged, and then you have a final evaluation. Okay, these are the resources if you want to read more about it, and this is how you will get evaluated if you provide this module and you evaluate your students. Then the lecture is basically how you're going to present it to your students. So that's the concept here. So the training lecture is just a PowerPoint, a Prezi, an Excel sheet if you want to do it like that, or a Word document if you don't really care about presentations, but you're more a teacher of improvisation. But unfortunately, Word document is not really possible at the moment because we require you to do a webinar. So it is only possible to do a training lecture in kind of a Word document or an Excel document if you're gonna provide a different topic in your webinar. So that's the choice that you have to make, basically. But if you want to simplify your life, if you want to, create a process for yourself, step 1, step 2, step 3, then I would, just like I said in the previous webinar when we discussed this, to make it easier for yourself to just do a training module about a specific concept, then write or present some kind of materials to present it in front of the students, and then in the webinar, show it basically. And then if you show it in the webinar, that's enough for us, so that we see the process that you made as a sort of coach, that you know how to establish kind of a concept, that you know how to present a concept because you also talk to your head coach about this, and that you also know how to provide the concept and make it understandable for the students or for anybody else that you're going to coach. Because as a coach or a manager, you're basically responsible for the information that you say. Because as a manager in a company, most of the people that work under you or work for you, they, in some kind of way, most don't, but in some kind of way, they look up to you. They admire you. They learn from you. They kind of see you as a mentor. If you're going to provide, as a manager, some kind of negative feedback, if you're going to provide information that doesn't fit kind of the way of the culture in the company, if you provide information but it's not clear, for example, they are going to basically get that information from you, and they're going to not learn the correct way, but they're going to provide the same way that you're doing it. And that's what right now we're teaching you. So basically, to see that you know how the process works and that you know how to present it. So kind of like a people management skill, which we also talked about a little bit earlier in the last webinar. So these are the three concepts. But to make it short, because I'm talking a lot as always, you have to do all three. So basically, the first two will be evaluated. The third one, the webinar, will be evaluated by the students because they are listening to your webinar, and we already seen your training model. We already seen your training lecture. The head coaches have seen it. So basically, the webinar gets voted by the students if they understood it, if they found it clear, if they found it helpful, if it was something that they would next semester to get more of those webinars. So this is basically the criteria that we have. But yeah, in a nutshell, you have to do all three. And I will just unmute you all because you're all muted. Oh, you have to unmute yourself. So if you want to talk.
Oh, hi, Tim. Thanks for the explanation, but I still have one doubt.
Yeah, sure.
There's the webinar and the lecture, and the lecture would be more for us to talk about a concept, right? For example, API style, and the webinar would be more practical, like, for example, giving tips how they could use this concept in the challenge, right? That's the main difference.
Yeah, so if you have the training module, which you have the concept, so you're explaining why is this concept relevant, why would I have a training about this, why would I coach people for this topic, then you're immediately thinking about, okay, how am I going to present it to people, right? How am I going to make this communication clear, and how am I going to teach them? So that training lecture is kind of a way of us saying, okay, you have to think about how you're going to convey the message. Manager, when you have a task, you have to convey to your employees, okay, well, we just had a meeting at a board meeting. We had a board meeting, and basically we decided that we have to, cut on the employees. So basically 20% has to go. And then you have those talks with those employees. Okay, this is what's going to happen. And in my office, my employees, 2 people have to go. And then you're trying to find a way to provide that message. It doesn't have to be a positive message, or it can be a negative message, as I just said with the example. What I do, or what we are trying to learn you, is that you think about the concept during this session of the training module, and then when you are doing the training lecture, that you think about, okay, how would I convey this, and how would this affect the people that are watching it? So in this case, if I use the example again, I would have to think about, okay, am I gonna do one-on-one sessions? Am I gonna do a webinar with the guys, or am I just gonna do a focus group, or how am I gonna tell them? am I just going to pick on performance, or am I going to pick on who's more motivated or dedicated? Or so you have to find a way to evaluate your concept model, for example, APA style, and then you have to try to find a way to make it understandable for the students or for the customers or for the employees. So the training lecture is not mentioned as that you have to actually present the training lecture. What we mean with training lecture is that you have to have the process, the thinking process of like trying to find out, okay, how do I communicate it? And in the webinar, you actually communicate it if you want to still do the same topic. Allowed to change topics, because in some cases we had that they wanted to change topics or they wanted to collaborate with somebody else on a single webinar. It is possible, but we just do want to see the process that you make if you were to present the same idea. Does it make sense?
For example, if I create the material for the lecture, then I can use it in the webinar, and I don't have to present like 2 times. The webinar would be enough.
Yes, the webinar would be enough. So if you do it about the same concept as a training module and training lecture with the same kind of process, it's just a step 1, step 2, step 3, and then one webinar is enough.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
If you're not doing it by the training module and lecture, one webinar is still enough, but you would have to basically find a different topic if you want that. One more important thing though, as I mentioned in the last webinar, at the end of November, the student competition ends. So they have to deliver, I think it's around the 28th, that they have to deliver their final report. So as I mentioned, during that time, before that, you can have concepts such as how to improve your final report, APA style, how to do research, what are the best practices for a final report, for example. After that, you don't necessarily have to do it. I know that some of you guys have been working on their training lecture and might not have the time to do it before the student competition ends or the normal semester. So that's fine as well. In December, because the coaching program lasts till the 23rd of December, and that's when the certificates will be handed out. So basically, if you want to do your webinar and it's still for the final report, that's fine. Do it in December. We will put it on the YouTube page, and basically people that are doing the next semester in January, they can watch those videos. So that's not a problem. But if you want to do it after the competition in December, there's enough time to talk about different concepts. You don't have to do it about the final paper. You can also talk about how to find market entries, or like which one's the best, which one is the most suitable in which situation. For example, like you can have all kinds of webinars, even about people management, how to address situations or conflict resolutions in your team when you're having a problem during collaboration, for example. So there are enough ideas to talk about.
Okay.
Is that also clear for you, Samantha?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Sorry, one question. Like, head coaches also have to do it, right?
It is not in the, as I mentioned to Karina, it's not necessary per se, but we would prefer it, as I told Karina, because basically you have a different perspective than a coach on certain situations. And for you, because this is kind of like the head coach kind of thing, is like a pilot from last semester to this semester. So we actually see which kind of things that we're missing. I already had a conversation with Samantha about this. Like we're seeing that some delays from us are getting delays from you guys, but delays from you guys get us delays as well. So that many head coaches are able to manage people skills, and some head coaches are not able to provide that same kind of quality. So we're trying to find out if that is due to the training that we give you guys, or if that is due that the information is not clear enough, or if there's something else that we can work on. So if you have an idea for a webinar, specifically about the head coach program, or you have something about the coaching program itself, or something that you can see that can improve, or maybe about a concept, for example, people management, or how to coach. These are all relevant topics. If you want to do a presentation like this, you are more than welcome to do it. And most likely the head coaches, their webinars will be put on the website instead of the YouTube page, but they will also be put on the website so that when people are checking out the website to actually apply for the coaching program, that they already get some more information. Okay, this is what happened. This is what's happening. Actually, people are talking about this. Is this something for me? What would I learn, for example? So if you have something, it would be strongly preferred to have you do a webinar.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions, or maybe experiences that you had this week which made you feel that you need some feedback on?
I do have a question, but it's regarding the cases, like students asking for help. How is it going? Are we going to receive the cases?
Yes, I'm actually very ashamed about this because I told you guys, or I told at least the head coaches, that they would receive last Sunday some cases. Apparently, this was not the case. I just found out like Wednesday that this was not the case. So what I will do, I will provide you with the email account. Okay, so I will provide you with the email account so that my assistant won't cause any more delays. So what we will do is I will give you the account for the email. Most likely every single day there will be new cases there. So what I would like you to do is then just in the email account as well. I will make an Excel sheet today so that that's quickly done in 5 minutes, and I will put your names there. The only thing that I require from you to do when you check the email account for cases and you solve them with your team is that you write down the number or write down the contact that you're contacting, so that I know that, okay, Karina is working on this case, Karina is working on that case as well, Henrik is working on these two, so that I know which cases you're working on. And then if I have a question, or if I get a personal email, because normally when they don't get an answer on their request, I get a personal email to my own account asking for support. So if I then get such an email, I know who to contact and I know how to handle the situation, because I will just ask you, what is the process on this case? I'm not sure if this is the best approach as of yet, because if you all have access to the account, it will probably be overlapping in some kind of cases. So if you, so I will do this is I will make 6 maps basically for 6 head coaches, and every single time you take a case, before you answer the person or before you take the case, you put that email in your case. So you can basically, the email request, you can basically click on it, drag it down to your map, and then it's in your map, just like putting it from your sent inbox to your outbox, for example. So this should solve the issue. So basically, if you have an email request, you instantly put it into your in your map, which is there for everybody to see, so that everybody knows, okay, this guy, Karina has 6 cases, Henrik has 5 cases, for example. I can easily manage that as well. So would this work? Would this work for you guys, or would you like me to provide you with the email request via email?
I think it's okay.
Yeah. So then I will make
Yes.
maps I will show you the account. Most likely, you will have some requests from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, because basically I always check the account from Monday to Friday morning, and then I always check it in the Monday morning again, so that I force myself to have time off in the weekend a little bit. But so you might see requests starting from Friday in the afternoon to Sunday currently. So when you have time, just click on the cases, basically drop it to your inbox once it's ready, and I will make sure that you have access to it.
Okay.
So I'll sending you an email with the account and with the password. Just make sure that you don't lose them, because I will just send it out once. Yes, that should solve the problem, I guess. So then you can actively work on the practical cases and be in contact with the students. Just make sure, and I'm gonna be really honest with you guys here. Just make sure, as a head coach, when you're providing it to your coaches, just make sure that you send them an email, as I mentioned in the previous webinar, right when you take the case and drop it into your box, so that the student knows, okay, this case is being handled, so that they are expecting a response back in 2 to 3 days. Earlier, but 2 to 3 days is acceptable. But just make sure that not every case is as it seems, okay? So many provide feedback, so they ask for feedback because they're in the final report stages. People that have conflict resolution types of problems, which they don't like their team, or they're still having problems with their team and they would like to have a solution or kick the person out. If you have such kinds of requests, be very vigilant that you are not making the wrong decision, because we have many cases where actually one person says, my team sucks, everything is going bad, and actually that person that is contacting you is the one that is disturbing the group, because actually the whole group is working fine, but except for that person. So they kick him out, or like they are having less communication with him, and basically that's why he's sending you a request, because he noticed that lack of communication between his team. So just be very vigilant that you don't make the mistake of providing support to the one that's actually causing the problem. Okay. So just as a tip.
Okay, thanks. I just asked it because I feel that some coaches are really expecting to treat real cases, and so far we're just reading the weekly comments and giving feedback on reports. That's why I asked it.
Yeah, the
Next
normal
week.
structure. Yeah, the normal
Sorry.
structure for this is that the first 3 weeks of the practical phase, or the first 2 to 4 weeks, are basically getting you into kind of giving the feedback, just like the theoretical part, that then you get used to the practical phase where you're giving feedback, so that you know what kind of feedback you have to give, what kind of problems are there. When you read the comments, you're more into the conflict resolution, what kind of problems do they have. And after those 4 weeks, we basically, according to the program, we provide you with the cases, but that should have started last week. So in this case, they, as I said, it should have been Sunday. It hasn't been done yet, so it's a week delay. I already talked to the person responsible for this. So let's do it like this. I will send you the email account. You can then access it, and then just every single day, just in the morning, check it for 2 minutes. If there are any cases, decide if you want to take some or you don't want to take some, because there are 6 head coaches, so you don't have to take all. But just if you see some and you have time with your coaches and you think your coaches can handle more cases, you can provide them with those. Okay?
Okay, thanks, Tim.
Any more questions or experiences? Maybe you had a fight with somebody, or maybe you saw a feedback or comment that you thought, okay, that was surprising. coaching program, you never know. Sharing experiences is an overall concept. So you can even discuss the coaching program or your ideas or your recommendations. I know in the survey that we had, mine, basically we found out different things, but overall we found out that all the coaches are happy with the coaching program overall. They do have suggestions regarding we would like to have more recommendations or like more feedback on the deliverables. And we would like to have more feedback on how to present your CV or your resume, or how to engage in job applications after this program, etc., etc. So we are trying to provide this in December. We're gonna provide you with some CV and resume recommendations, how to present that. And as I said, we're trying to provide, because this is only for 2 weeks more, so we're providing it in the next 2 weeks as well. But definitely for next semester, we're trying to make the process a little bit faster with the students, so that we can provide not only feedback, but also some sort of rating for your kind of feedback that you have given in the previous week. So we do see the recommendations that you made in the survey. We are definitely going to implement some of them. So if you have some kind of experiences and you would like to share some recommendations, you're more than welcome to share them as well in this kinds of webinars, to better the program, to basically better, if you're better the program, you're also providing a more solid background for your certificate that you're going to earn at a later stage. So it's also in your benefit to provide recommendations for the program. But yeah, we saw a lot of ratings in the surveys. The only thing that was very obvious in the survey, and we're not going to be lying about this, this is obvious and we're honest about this, communication was on 80%, which is a good grade. Clarity was something that was lacking, which was a 46%. So we checked the overall statistics for who is providing the information, and that's where we found out that the admin, which is VAS in this case, provided 60 to 70%, which is not high, not low. So probably we should have VAS provide more information or more engagement in this kind of type of program. For the head coaches, it was 70 to 80%, with Notion to some head coaches. So I'm not going to name names, but there is definitely one head coach that isn't participating at all. So we found that out very soon. So currently, I'm taking over that team. But yeah, definitely we're listening to your recommendations. And then it was silent.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
how do the weeks after, like, how does the December look like? Because we have the weekly deliveries, like, and then what will be the task for the coaches that I
So
can
you mean
inform them?
you mean the new weekly deliverables, right?
Yes, like you said, like the students are done basically in 1 or 2 weeks with the reports. And what will be the task for the coaches afterwards, like in whole December?
Yeah,
Like
so we have a
week,
couple of things that we're gonna do in December. So definitely the weekly deliverables and the comments, they end. So basically you won't have to evaluate the comments, you don't have to evaluate the deliverables. What will be happening is basically a few things, depending on what you have done so far, okay? So there are a couple of factors. There are a couple of factors that are still there based on what you have done or not. So we're talking about the training module, we're talking about the training lecture, and the webinar. If you haven't done those things, they will be moved to December, and you have to complete them in order to get the certificate. One of the other things is your reflection paper. We need your reflection paper. We need to evaluate it because it's basically most of your grade for receiving the certificate, because this is the part where you self-reflect on yourself. This is the part where all the things that you've learned, the practical engagement, this is where it all comes down to. If you are able to have the self-awareness to see where you were lacking and what you have improved and what the experience was to you. So basically those two things, the training lectures and the webinars and the reflection paper, if you haven't done that yet, most likely the reflection paper you haven't. So those things have to be done in December. According to the weekly deliverables, as I mentioned, we are gonna provide you with some kind of workshops to provide you with a CV resume kind of approach, so that you know how to align your experiences in these kinds of documents so that you can provide that into your job application. So we are going to provide you with that. That will probably be a week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on how many sessions we're going to do. We're also going to provide you with people management. So in terms of weekly deliverables, you will not have kind of the weekly kind of materials that you would have when the program of the normal Xculture is basically happening. You will not have to evaluate, you will not have to provide feedback. However, the last well, it's a small month, but the last month, basically before Christmas, is more focused on providing you with that extra bit of information before you receive the certificate. So it's more seminars, it's more sessions of providing you with information than that you actually have to provide information to us. So think about the sessions that we're going to have about the CV and resume. Think about the sessions about people management. So I will have a couple of sessions with you guys on how to address situations within your team as a manager. I will have a couple of sessions personally with you guys on how to resolve conflicts, how to resolve conflict resolutions when you're at your job, how to deal with cultural collaborations, how to motivate your employees, or how to motivate your people. So we're gonna have these kinds of sessions at that moment. So we have a 2-week period of, I think, resume and people management, and then we have a 2-week period, kind of 1.5 week period at the end of December before Christmas, where we will actually focus more on the reflection paper, providing you with webinars or like sessions to provide you with, okay, what is expected into the reflection paper, what do you have to focus on, what is a good reflection paper and what is an average one based on the self-awareness that you had. So the last month, basically, this was not in the previous semester, but we're going to do this in this semester, is basically not to leave you there, basically after that the competition is gone, the normal Xculture sessions, but give you more information so that when you have that certificate, you exactly know, okay, this is what I learned, this is what I'm getting out of this program, and when I go for a job application, I not even know, I don't even, like I'm saying that wrong, like I know how to present myself, I know how or what kind of qualities I possess during the program, during my experience in university, during high school, for example, and I know how to address these issues that I've learned in practice in my job as a manager at your company. Or so basically it's going to be a whole kind of how do I present myself and how do I reflect the capabilities that I have in the various documents that I'm going to provide. So this is the last month of the coaching program. It's going to be kind of the same, but it's going to be kind of a little bit different, but we're still putting the last touches on that. But for the coaches, this is going to be their last month. So we're trying to finish off every single document that they have to provide us with. We are doing all the webinars, so not only our webinars with people management and resume sessions that we will be doing, but also the people that haven't done their webinars yet, and they still have to do them, they can provide them to us. So it's going to be more of not weekly deliverables, but it's going to be more of a month where a lot of sessions are going to happen. So if you want to be present, if you want to be there, if you want to learn something, if you want to hear professors talking, this is the month of getting the most information besides the theoretical phase. Does that make sense?
Okay, thank you.
I mean, according to the survey, this is what we, as feedback received from all the coaches. So we received that they would like to have more sessions on kind of different concepts that I just mentioned, so that they are more prepared after the certificate to provide the same kind of knowledge that they had, so that they so basically what we did in the theoretical phase, what we did in the practical phase, all those different points, all those little pieces of information that you got, basically in the last month, we're trying to connect all the little pieces, all the different information, so that you, when you have the certificate, when you do go for a job application, that you can show the whole picture instead of just pieces of information. Any more questions or experiences?
Not really. Like this week was really calm. So to say.
Okay, no conflicts in your team?
No. Everything is solved. No, it's really cool. Like this week is really kind of relaxing because everybody understands what to do. The tasks are pretty clear. Yeah, like nothing.
Did they all fear you or they respect you?
I hope they fear me. No, like we have a good climber in my team. Like it's like it's going good. Like nothing really bad. Like we don't fight with each other or something like this. Like everybody is busy. Like one of my team members is moving to Miami. The others are working. One had some kind of back pain and so on. But it's going good. Like nothing really problematic. It's just normal life, and everybody, like I'm happy that everybody understands what to do this week and that there's no clarification needed. And yeah, I guess like everybody's working now on the deliverables for this week, and yeah, let's see what they do.
Okay, perfect. And would you say, I mean, we're going to talk about this in December, but would you say that you're more of a directive kind of manager or a head coach, or more collaborative?
It depends. Like it's a hard question because like the biggest problem I had at the start was to make clear what they have to do and how they have to do it. And for that, I figure out that you need to give the coaches or anyone a clear guideline, what you have to do, what they have to do, and how they have to do it, and what you expect from them, because they need some kind of guideline. And there, I couldn't rely on self-learning. So I basically had to tell them what to do and how to do it and what is expecting from them. And I guess like when you have this knowledge, later on you can be more collaborative and like rely on self-learning and all this kind of bottom-up approaches when you make clear what they have to do. But I tried like not to be a dictator. or something like this. So I asked a lot of questions. But the problem is that when you ask like too much questions, like the team is a little bit lost because there's a need for some certain amount of guideline. And yeah, as I said, like later on when they understand what to do and how to do these things, like they develop some kind of self-motivation to do it better or to do it in a different way, which is also very good. And they kind of develop more from themselves, and you don't have to be so direct what to do and how to do it. But in the beginning, it was totally necessary because I failed a little bit to explain some things, and then we figure out how to make it better. And now we find a good way as a team, because I try to listen to my team and get some feedback how to do the things better. And now we figure out how to like deal with the deliverables, how to set the deadline so that I have sometimes later on to put everything together and send it to you on time, and so that everybody is not in a rush, but it's clear that the things are done on time and not too late. And yeah, that's good.
Well, it's good. It's good to hear that there's a kind of a 50-50 ratio on directive and collaborative. Like with directive, as you already said it, you're moving to a dictatorship kind of atmosphere, but you do provide security, because I mean, if you're providing the assignments, you're telling them what to do, so there's no confusion. Okay, I have to do it different, or how do I do it? Because I will just do it how you said it. But if you do it collaborative, like a 50-50 approach, you can say what needs to be done, but you can also just adjust to the situation if somebody doesn't understand, or if somebody has a specific need, or has something to change, or has an idea to change it. Then you can easily move that around and talk about it as professionals. Just make sure that if you do it collaborative, because that's this kind of concept, if you do it like this, don't do it 100%, because although the employees, or like your coaches, they might love you for it, because collaborative basically means that you're kind of lowering yourself to the same level, and so that you can just openly talk, so that they can address you as openly as they would like their other peers. But the minus point about this is that you have to be aware that during the process that you're getting familiar with your coaches, that you don't let yourself be vulnerable to basically doubting their decisions. So basically, they can doubt your decisions because if I say you have to have the deadline on Wednesday, for example, and normally when you're directive, you would say, yes, it's on Wednesday. This has to be done. No extension, whatever. It has to be done on Wednesday. But if you then, when you're collaborative and you say, yeah, we can do it on, I think it was Thursday that we have to deliver it. And then if I say Wednesday, because I said in the email, it's Wednesday the whole time, so I'm not sure why you came up with Thursday. If you're 100% collaborative, the next time that they have an issue, next time they have a problem, they will come to me directly instead of you. So that is the minus point about that specific concept. So what you see most of the time right now in multinational companies is basically you have those directive ones, which are basically it's actually a funny thing, because I did a research about this, and directive managers are actually single childs. So basically they don't have siblings, so that they're the firstborn, basically the firstborn, and that's why they're directive, because they have no siblings, or they have siblings under them basically, and they were always the oldest, so they were always kind of directive. They were always kind of the more responsible person. Nowadays, when you have a lot of siblings, most families have, and you're the middle child, or you're like the last one, most of the time what you see in multinational companies right now is that a lot of managers are collaborative more than directive. But the best practice is basically 50-50. So that you superiority, basically whenever there's an issue that you can resolve the issue by yourself and don't have to have your superiors there. But collaborative improves the motivation, improves the engagement, and keeps the employees more happy than the directive approach, because you will be more dictatorship. You will have a more dictatorship environment. But that's good to hear. That's good to hear that you don't have any problems. You don't have that. Actually, this week was a relaxing week for you, due to the fact that you explained everything last week so clearly.
Yeah, I can just share that how I do it with the deadline. Like as you explained, like collaborative and dictatorship. Like I'm kind of dictator, so I set the deadline 2 days earlier than you do. So we have a team deadline, which is always like Sunday or Monday. But then we have different cultures in my team, and different cultures handle deadlines differently. So I knew that if I set the deadline like 2 days earlier, I have 1 day to be collaborative. So I can give them 1 day without a blink, without thinking. I can say like, okay, you have some problems and it's a bit hard to you to deliver it maybe on Sunday, so you can do it on Monday. That's no problem. But in this case, I kind of make sure that I have it on when it's maybe Tuesday evening for me to send it to you. I have it Tuesday morning done from everyone, and I'm not missing my personal deadline, but I also make sure that I have a team deadline, which is clear, but then I have like a flexible date, like 1 day to adjust if something urgent happen, or if someone just simply forget to do it, or if the internet is not working, and yeah, just to be more flexible in that kind of thing.
And what happens with the situation where you provide them with the information saying, okay, the deadline is 2 days before the actual deadline, for example, Sunday, and then the first time, basically, when a coach has a problem, you, without a blink of an eye, you say, okay, yeah, Monday or Tuesday is fine. What happens the next weeks? Is the next week basically standard that they just provided on Monday, or are you still saying, okay, after Sunday, okay, we know I don't blink an eye when it is 1 day later because we have the 2 days in advance, but you cannot do this every single time? Or is it like slowly sinking in that, like, okay, if I don't do it Sunday, I can easily do it Monday, no problems? Is that mentality there right now, or
I try to avoid that mentality by making sure that we have a deadline, which should be a deadline. To be honest, that in that case I have to remind the team like 3, 4, 5, 6 times that we actually have a deadline, which is Sunday and not Monday. But I guess I think, like, from my experience, in most of the cases, like from 4 of the coaches, like 2 or 3, they totally understand what a deadline is, and that the deadline should be that you need to deliver it on time, basically. But then there's always this one coach, or maybe there's at least one coach which has some, or who has some like problems. Let's say internet is not working, which is he or she is traveling, something happened in family. I would say, like, sometimes it's also laziness, that, you know, what you said, like, that, you know, that it's basically Wednesday, the deadline, and the team deadline is Sunday, so why can I not Tuesday? That's also understandable. But yeah, what I try, or have to try, is to remind the coaches a lot that we have a deadline, and we agreed as a team on the deadline, because I also asked the team if it's good to set the deadline like 2 days earlier, because then we have like 1 day to be flexible about the deliverables, and then I have enough time to put everything together. And the team agreed with me on the deadline, that like 2 days earlier. And, so it's not like a dictatorship that I said like I want to have this. I said I want to have this, but I also explained it why I want to have this, and so everybody agreed on that. But I do have to remind deadline and that it's not like super flexible. That's true. And there you have to rely on responsible your team is and what is the commitment of your team to the project and to the deliverables. Like, yeah, you basically, you have to guide them, but you also have to rely on your team that if they understand that it's good to hand in the deliverables on time and to give me sometimes, then I'm lucky. If they think like, okay, it's not so important, this project, then I have to do more effort to explain why it's important and so on. But so far, like, I'm totally happy with my team and we are on a very good way. Like, we are improved a lot, so to say.
Okay, that sounds good. We will definitely talk more about these kinds of concepts and topics during the people management in December, because we will have the same sessions with the head coaches and the coaches, so that not only the head coaches but also the coaches can provide their experiences, as many coaches also already have working experience. So we can then share experiences, and in the same time I will provide some presentation or different presentations, because it will be multiple sessions to provide you with information and to discuss these kinds of topics, so that we can go deeper into these concepts as the discussions that we have just a second ago. Okay, so then we can talk about this, learn from each other. Are there any more questions or suggestions? Because we're almost closing the 1 hour mark. So, I mean, if there are no other questions anymore, no suggestions, everything is clear, we can slowly break off the webinar.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think it's everything clear.
Thank you very much.
Okay, perfect. Sam, do you have any more questions?
No, I'm good right now.
Okay. Then if you're still okay with it, then we can meet up after this. So you can just stay in the Hangout. I will just stop the broadcast. So then this is the end of the webinar, and we hope to see you next Sunday.